Ladies and gentlemen, it is once again that time of the year for the manga community to pick sides and go to war. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is ThePromG. Welcome back to a brand new video now. Today I'm talking about a tweet that I saw that has been making the rounds and going really crazy on manga Twitter. Now, the tweet in question is a screenshot of this manga collection and caption from the Manga Collector subreddit posted on Twitter with this caption: "Collecting subreddits are so stupid. This guy is 18 and admitted in replies he never has time to read any of it." Which has basically started this huge shitstorm on social media, especially Twitter. People either saying, leave this guy alone, he can collect however he wants, he can buy whatever he wants, why are we talking about this? And then people that are saying he's a tourist, he's throwing away his money, how he's collecting is dumb and wrong. Now, you guys may be thinking that my answer is going to be pretty simple and straightforward, that you should buy whatever you want and not worry about, how other people spend their money. And while I do agree with that, I'm kind of mixed on this specific issue for reasons that I'll get into later. But of course, this video is an open discussion, so feel free to agree or disagree with me respectfully in the comments down below. Leave your thoughts on this whole situation because I'm seeing a lot of contrasting ideas, so definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So the first thing that we're going to do is examine some specific tweets and viewpoints from each side of the argument, starting off with some tweets saying you should be able to spend your money however you want. Basically, nothing is wrong with the way this guy collects manga. Zach from Uchu's Shelf says, "I will never shit on these collectors because 1, they're clearly enjoying it in some capacity, and 2, they're supporting legal manga and helping the industry." Now, this is probably the tweet that I align with most. I think both points that Zach makes are pretty valid. Obviously, they're enjoying it to some degree as they keep on buying manga allegedly over $10,000 worth. They wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't some enjoyment in it for them. And 2, saying that, he is supporting legal manga in the industry, and I assume that at least some of his manga collection, if not most, were bought retail. Therefore, the second point I believe is also correct, and overall a net benefit for the manga industry and the rest of the community. And it's for these reasons, specifically when it comes to manga, that my big philosophy is, let people spend their money however they want to, as long as they're not hurting anybody and it's within their means, they're doing it in a healthy and feasible way. I really don't see any issue with it. But on the other side of the argument, you have people saying things like this: "At this point, it's just about showing off your disposable income and not about being passionate about your interests." And to a point, I can also kind of understand this point of view. Me personally, I have never really been a big fan of assigning a numerical value to a manga haul or a manga collection, because at the end of the day, yeah, it might get you some attention, it might get you some views on a YouTube video, but that's not really what it's all about. And at the end of the day, people care a lot more about, the actual series you picked up and your thoughts on it than how much money you spent. And as time has gone on, especially in those dark COVID years where manga was super hot and popular, admittedly, there were a lot of people, specifically on Reddit, that would just pump out these manga haul and collection posts pretty much only to show off how much they spent and how much they'd accumulated in a short amount of time. And when there's no actual discussion taking place about the series and the volumes that are being picked up and shown off, I can understand how a lot of manga collectors that are passionate about these manga would be a little bit frustrated and annoyed. Now, here's an interaction that I screenshotted that I thought was kind of interesting, with 2 people on both sides responding to each other. The first person says, "Collecting for the sake of collecting, especially when you're spending such a huge amount on something you won't even read? At that point, you're just throwing away money to keep it out of the hands of someone who will really enjoy it." Then the other person responds with, "You can collect things you think are cool, not use them, and still appreciate them," and then gives an example of their own experience with CDs and not touching any of them but spending a lot of money. Now, the first thing I want to do with this is immediately strike down the notion that this person is just keeping manga series out of other people's hands. Take a look at this collection. Basically, all of this stuff is readily available in print and available to literally anybody that wants it. There is an argument to be made about the point of collecting for the sake of collecting, but again, that is purely subjective, and the rest of this person's argument just really doesn't make any sense. And then looking at the other person's response, basically saying you can buy and not touch, but still appreciate something that you collect, I think is true. Obviously, not what I would do, as I read all of my manga that I buy. but I still think that there is something to be said about buying and purely appreciating, no matter how expensive or pointless it seems from the outside perspective. And then one last tweet that I wanted to look at from a popular manga YouTuber, the Omnibus Collector. He had kind of a neutral standpoint in my opinion. I'll read the tweet now. These are the people that are offloading their whole collections now, by the way. Then he goes on to say that he would rather buy with intent rather than buying purely for this consumer mentality that some manga collectors do have. I kind of agree that a lot of people who buy manga this rapidly, you know, 1 year, $10,000, the chances that they're gonna sell off their manga when they get burned out is pretty high. And then the second part of Omnibus Collector's tweet where he says he much rather would buy with intent than with consumer mentality alone. I completely agree with. Buying with intent is something that I always do. If I buy something, I'm going to read it, I'm going to use it, I know I will enjoy it to the fullest potential. And this consumer mentality that a lot of manga collectors go into the hobby with can burn you out really quick, not be smart financially, and just have a lot of negative outcomes, which I'll get to a bit later in the video. So now we've talked a little bit about some specific examples of both sides and the arguments that are being made. Now we're going to talk about what really matters, which is my opinion. And to sum it all up, I'll put up a tweet on the screen of this tweet that I made a couple days ago addressing this issue, basically saying, you know, you can spend your money on manga, you can collect manga however you want, but even if you're buying 1,000 manga volumes in a month, you are still involved at the very base level, the most shallow level of the manga community as a whole. So basically what I'm saying with this tweet is that, by and large, I agree with the first argument that, you know, as long as somebody is enjoying themselves, not hurting anybody, and it was within their means to do so, you really have no place as an outsider to judge what they do with their money. However, if you only collect to collect, you're basically missing out on the whole point of the manga community, which is sharing thoughts, feelings, and opinions on the actual manga series themselves. So if you're buying just to buy, you really don't have any place to contribute or take part in these discussions, which by and large makes you a pretty meaningless voice in the manga community at large. Now I will say that I completely understand if somebody just wants to buy manga and not associate or interact with the manga community, because Lord knows it can be rough sometimes, but just based off my personal experience reading these manga stories, interacting with other people who are passionate about the same things that I am, I would highly urge anyone to go away from this consumer mentality and actually read your manga. And again, I want to make this really clear by saying that I think you should read your manga. It's not saying that you have to and that if you don't, you're collecting the wrong way. But I think that, you know, based off my experiences, it's fair for me to try to persuade others who may be collecting just to collect to actually dive into the stories and open up a whole new part of the manga collecting hobby that is super gratifying. And the last thing that I wanted to touch up on in this video is this idea of consumer mentality. Now, obviously this means, you know, just getting caught up in consuming as much as you can in as little time as possible, just for the sake of buying, or maybe the thrill that comes with making a purchase and unboxing it. We've all felt it. But when that consumer mentality is the driving force in your collecting habits, I do think that it can lead to negative outcomes. For example, being stuck with a whole lot of stuff that you no longer care about after a period of time. Taking this one specific example in the tweet, it's very possible that in a year or two, this guy will be stuck with thousands of dollars worth of stuff that is heavy, takes up a lot of space, impossible to move, and he might even have to sell it at a loss just to get rid of it. And that ties directly into the financial aspect of consumer mentality, where more often than not, it's not going to be beneficial for your wallet, whether you either find yourself in hard times with money because you've spent so much so quickly, or when you're trying to sell off stuff you don't want anymore, you're selling it for a massive loss, and at the end of the day, you got nothing out of it. So just based off of my own opinions and perspective, I would urge all of you to avoid consumer mentality, just because it is not worth it, and there's so much more to the manga hobby than just buying for you to enjoy. And again, I've said it a million times, consumer mentality, if you want to go that route, do what you want as long as you know you're financially able to. But I just want to warn you of all the negative things that can happen if you do get wrapped up into this endless cycle of buying and spending money. So that's basically going to do it for this video. I wanted to talk about people who buy and don't actually read their manga. Wait, this guy is reading his manga in the post? Then what was the point of all this? Well, anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more manga videos just like this. So yeah, this has been ThePromG. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. And as always, hope to catch you in the next one.